Does everyone know how to add something to key terms of the question? So say the key term in a question is power. How do I add something to that? You ask yourself a question. What questions can you ask yourself? So if the key term is power, how do you force yourself to elaborate on that so that you don't merely repeat the words of the question? Here's what you do. You ask yourself what we call mini questions or micro questions. So write the following questions down. You can call them mini or micro questions. When you underline the key terms of the question, there's only going to be a couple, by the way. 1, 2, at most 3, but even if there's 3 key terms of the question, there's probably 1 central term. So don't highlight everything. Explain how they are not key terms at the start of the question in the way I'm talking about it. You ask yourself these mini questions, okay? And they are how, why, what type, so what is the last one. And you don't want to be sarcastic when you answer that in the exam. Those 4 questions will get you there every time. Now, you could ask yourself who and where and when. I mean, you start going into those other question words. They're just not as insightful typically, but added details help. So the point of the first couple of sentences of every one of your essays is to be as specific as possible. Be as specific as possible. The way to be specific is to grab the key term that they want you to talk about and then ask yourself those mini questions on top and answer it in the sentence. That's literally the method. Okay? What's an example? Power? Well, it would depend on the context of the question. Not every mini question is going to be relevant to every term. Do you also get that? You don't have to answer all 4. What type of power? See that? Oh, what type of power? Well, that's going to force you to write an adjective before the word power, correct? What's an example of a word that could go before power? Manipulative power? Great. So you say political power, you could actually even characterize it that way, right? And you could also talk about the corruption of power. Right? So the point is, you can actually make a note here to put an adjective before a key term if you're answering the what type question. So for all your introductions, for all your thesis statements, which is the first sentence or 2 of the introduction, which I have tried to emphasize is the most important paragraph you will write in all of your essays, you want to ask yourself those mini questions in relation to the key terms of the question. And then to answer the what type, you can use an adjective before it, or you can actually put the word of after it. If it was power, then you could say the power of, or the power to something, right? So you can add the word of and to, and you can practice this. It depends what word it is as to which one will be the best fit. The power of the collective, right? So the point is, and that's good as well. If it was the common module, draw upon rubric terms if you can. Be careful just saying the rubric term like that, the power of the collective. We're talking in really vague terms here, so that's fine. If you were doing it in your actual essay, you actually would want to try and identify the collective, right? The power of what type of collective? You see how I keep asking myself that question? And you can try and put adjectives before the key terms and also elaborate after. The questions how and why will force you to get really to the meat of it, but the what type question is actually super useful just to immediately go beyond the question. So when you practice that will make more sense. Because everyone's doing all these different texts, I'm not going to go into specific examples. So tying that back to what I was saying, what's the most important thing to do the day before, on the Sunday? It's to practice new questions, doing those introductions, doing the strategy I just said. So you see how that links back? So if that's what you're going to be doing on the day of the exam, then you better practice that the day before with a few new questions. Don't write out full essays for all of them. It's too time consuming. It's not the best use of time. This is the day before. You should already know the core essay, so you don't need to keep writing it out.